Hey everybody, we're back again with another chapter of Gundam 00F. This time chapter 7, Last Support. But before that, well, first off, throat's been a little rough lately, so if I seem a bit off or take a moment, I apologize. I just wanted to be able to get this out there. Promised y'all a 00F manga review, and I am damn hell gonna do it. And then, of course, let's get comments from last time out of the way before we jump in. First off, we have Log Hey Long from the Discord this time. Says, "Oh right, you were asking about the aimback system, or AMBAC. I don't know if I said the words last time or if I pronounced it or whatever. Active Mass Balance Control System. Basically a balancing and maneuver system that all mobile suits have in every Gundam show." I think I've said this before, but too often I've seen in the comments someone saying all the Gundams have this, or every Gundam in every show has this, and I know a lot of you like to go real deep into like the mechanics, like reading the mech sheets or whatever they are, and I'm pretty sure like a bunch of the Gunpla has it in their little how to build note things. But if you're just watching the show, a lot of the stuff like this just doesn't get said. And I mean, for me, it's always, hey, these are all different timelines, right? Not everything is the stuff that's in Gundam 1960s. Was it 1960s, 1970s? We'll find out when we get there. Um, isn't spoken about in the alternative timelines. I mean, this one I'll give a pass for. This just seems basic. This seems like something we'd put in a. This seems like a gyroscope. Active mass balance control system. It sounds like a weighted gyroscope, but you would have in like airplanes now, jets and whatnot. So yeah, I'm just. This really has nothing to do with your comments anymore. It's just me trying to blanket statement a thing that I say a lot. So good, thank you. I'm not arguing with you. I am agreeing with you. This is good. Next up, we have Joss Phoenix, Type F, Type Farachette, painted red, lol. The one thing to notice is how much stuff we use from this models to the Gundams and beyond. There's a page missing, a thank you page, from when they got serialized for Volume 2. It's hilarious. Yeah, I may have missed a page there. I tend to skip over the section that seems like it's the scanlation people's notes. So if I did that by accident and thought it was or if I saw their thank you page and thought it was the scanlation page and just skipped over it, it's my bad then. Maybe I'll include it somewhere else where I'm get extra space. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. F for Farachette. It's the name of the group. Uh, I guess that I guess that's gonna be the naming scheme from now on, or is it gonna just be an obvious thing? P for past, double OP. Okay. Okay, thank you for the comments. Otherwise, I don't have much else of note heading into this one. So how about we just jump into it then? Page one. We start off in an empty space. Then get the glowing of a spot in the distance as the astray, or Astrea, quickly grows into focus. Fawn's insane laughter filling the panel as we catch up to it. We see his energetic focus as he stares out the cockpit with Hanyo in his lap before getting an echo of the last conversation from the previous chapter, questioning going out in the Gundam. Going to a two-page spread, we return back to Fawn's room from the last scene. The finished trays of food are even still on the table. Echo is questioning what Fawn is going to do, or is going to rescue the Batalmos, calling it insane since it's surrounded by the UN's GN-equipped suits. In this panel, it is funny to point out that both Hanyo and Sherilyn are blank-faced staring at Fawn as he walks away from them. Fawn retorts that Echo is an idiot, asking why he would rescue the others. Echo is about to state their mission, but Fawn quickly interrupts and says that he'll face the world in his own way, like a true Gundam Meister. You know, the only thing that he respects Setsuna for, really. And we suddenly get the main crew's lineup of Gundams, I assume meaning to place Fawn in the company of everyone else. Which, given Fawn's worldview perspective and his constant insulting of a number of the Gundam Meister crews and their mission, doesn't really make a lot of sense, so I obviously instantly think I'm wrong, but it's where I see it in the moment. As if to save face, Fawn switches back to saying that the main crew shouldn't be all that easy to do in anyways, causing Echo to ask why he's going out then. Looking back at Chal, he says that he doesn't know. Silent for a moment, she balls her fist up and states that the enemy has seized Veda, and now controls the flow of information, while trying to suppress celestial being with firepower. The next line is difficult to parse, as coming from Chal in the context of the conversation, but she apparently states things from the UN point of view. That celestial being brought this on themselves when they proclaimed themselves heroes to the world, and that the UN's only option is to defeat them with force. Again, it's confusing, because you wouldn't expect her to be saying it, given what she is, where she's at, who she's talking to, and what she's talking about. It almost feels like that's an outside line, but we know she's talking. Hanyo then decides to ask if Fawn is right, and that celestial being won't fall so easily to a frontal attack. Leaning into the conversation with the other veterans, before that said, she was a pretty good strategist herself. I'm doing it again. Strategist herself. Chal indicates that the UN will target their resources in order to weaken them, and that it is best to assume that the location of all the secret docks have already been discovered. This makes sense if Veda has all the intel, and the person controlling Veda now is operating against them. Because we know who's there. We've already seen Alejandro and Ribbons in one of the panels from the previous chapters. So Sherilyn remembers that Ian had said that supplies are the second battlefield, and asks if they will come for them too. Echo goes back into nervous, scared mode and asks if they are in danger right now. Fawn, the only one still smiling, says that he will deal with the enemies at the supply dock. Chal seems to start moving into operation mode, saying that they will use cargo ships to recover the supplies, as Sherilyn acknowledges it as though it were an order. Returning back to the zooming Astrea, Hanyo announces that they are arriving at a supply dock, but there is a Union cargo ship and 6 patrolling Union flags in the area. She warns Fawn that their current course will lead them to being detected by the enemy. Fuck that, Fawn replies, indicating that he didn't come for a nice chat. Almost instantly, the flags detect the approach of GN particles, albeit confusingly. I mean, they're out here for a fight, right? So it seems like they'd be expecting someone to come. Uh. While still on a high-speed approach, Vaughn opens fire and immediately destroys one of the flags. We see another launching from a distant side of the asteroid as it appears that the cargo ship is moving to get away. Either that, or it's just another asteroid in the distance. I am bad at this, I've said 1,000 times now. The commanding flag shouts for the rest of the unit to deploy and attack, shouting the much beloved "It's a Gundam" line. Breaking into maniacal laughter again, Fond shouts that he'll even use Trans Am. Already it looks like I was wrong. We can see another asteroid in the distance of this two-page spread. The cargo ship cracked in half and clearly not escaping. Another two more explosions mark that half the detected flags are already down. Three left in the area, and only one of them explicitly visible on the page. Most telling of all is the fact that despite Fahn's declaration, the art of the Astrea isn't doing the typical Trans Am segue, implying that this was all done under normal Fahn skill. Fast forwarding to just after the action, we find ourselves in one of Celestial Being's supply docks, as Sherilyn lets everyone know that they've finished loading the parts. Just making a note, but it looks like every one of Celestial Being's asteroid bases have the same control room set up. Echo narrates that 4 docks have been cleared and maintains a generally upbeat tone as Chawl asks Fahn what is wrong. Fahn notes that it's too easy and that Veda should be throwing all she's got at them to try and get the GN drive. Echo then suggests that might be due to the fact that Veda is busy pursuing the Ptolemos. In his state of happy ignorance, Echo suggests that it is why Veda lost track of them. Hanyo refutes this by saying that Veda is processing information from all over the world and that it should be impossible to hide from Veda. We get a brief glimpse of screen text as Fahn is side-eyeing it, and we get an internal monologue of him figuring that the way the UN is acting, they don't know where the Ptolemos is either. Just another refutation of the previous claim that Fahn isn't a thinker. Shoving Echo out of the way, Fahn logs into the network. Hanyo's eyes go weird in this panel, almost as though it's meant to denote shock on her part, but I'd imagine that's what her eyes also look like when being used as a flashlight. If you've ever seen a sci-fi movie where like the robot's eyes just turn into flashlights in the dark, maybe like Red Dwarf would be a good example of that. That's what I'm talking about. Sherilyn also looked shocked and scared in this scene as she says that if he accesses the network this way, their location will be revealed. Vaughn then prompts Hanyo, whose eyes do that thing again, I guess showing that it wasn't shock, but just how she looks when she's acting as a terminal for Veda directly. We also see the eye effect that the innovators have in the show that I think I commented on in one of the earlier chapters. Hanyo tells them that Veda is not tracking them, it is unable to detect them. Everyone is surprised by this and questions why, except for Fawn, of course, who often seems, even in the midst of being smart, to be taking shots in the dark and getting lucky. He says that Trans Am isn't the only parting gift that Aola left them, and Hanyo continues. saying that Veda can see them, but when it enters their data, it treats that information as non-existent. Um, Makes me wonder if this was said in the show and I forgot or missed it. I know the Potalmos severed its connection to Veda, and we know Ian suggested Fairchet do the same, but now it seems like that doesn't matter, and that a safeguard was planned in case Veda was taken over in order to protect the Meisters, as if this was all part of the plan. Chal then asks if that also makes it impossible to retrieve the Meister's data, and Hanyo acknowledges that it does, but the Meisters still retain their access. She then begins to state what her own status is before suddenly being interrupted, and her iris changing to an almost static version. I mean, it doesn't look like static per se, but I imagine this is what the signal interruption looks like if you used an eyeball as a symbol. The last panel looks like Hanyo is being sucked down a data tube, their clothes being destroyed by a white light or electricity. It's hard to figure out what exactly it's meant to indicate. In a two-page spread, we can see Hanyo flying through a tunnel of swirling light, filled with panels of scenes from actions from the show. Close up of cockpit screens, ships in the middle of battle, Gundams fighting, explosions. My best guess is that all of this is taking place at the end of season one, especially with that glaring middle top image of the Potomos half destroyed. Hanyo flies further down the tube, and all question can be lost. Sorry, joking there for a second. The very first panel has an image of that giant golden vessel with all the engines on it. Pretty sure one of those screens is also displaying a two bridge crew members, the ones that were having their last moments together, the one that's stabbed in the back, and the one that's a fucking Terminator. I'm never gonna get over that. Dude just turned it up to be a Terminator the whole damn time. Moving forward, Hanyo spots a spark of light, simply calling it the cause. Now, I'm pretty sure I've called out ribbons from another time skip panel in the past, specifically when there was a panel of him and Corner together, but now we get a nice big fat close up of him standing next to Scheinberg's suspended animation chamber, just giving a smirk towards camera as Hanyo both spots and recognizes him by name. And just like that, we get disconnected from the vision we are seeing. Returning back to the supply dock, we can see that Hanyo's projection has been disrupted for the moment, or at least that is my interpretation of the first panel's dissonance. Fawn asks her what's wrong, and a very tired looking Hanyo responds that Celestial Being has been destroyed. Both Fawn and Chal look surprised at this, Chal more so shocked. I guess with all the flashing imagery we saw, we've gone past the two episodes I thought we were in, and straight to the end of the season. I had actually thought that since we had seen ribbons above the corpse tube, that we were actually just a bit further back. But I guess we are wrapping up season one mid-volume of 00F. I have to wonder now if I'm going to catch up to where we are in the show with how fast 00F is approaching it. I'm going to call this page the Reverse Evangelion, as we get everyone centered around Hanyo, who has just delivered their bad news, looking dejected or in disbelief, as opposed to the clapping of Evangelion, with the only one saying anything being Echo, who could only muster, "No way." Sorry, now I'm suddenly imagining he talks like Keanu Reeves. Fawn and Hanyo go back out in the Estrella, and we can see the space around them is littered with the debris of the battles we saw in the show. A surprising amount of the UN suits are still mostly intact, it seems, despite having blown up. Hanyo notes that the fighting seems over already before indicating towards an object floating amongst the wreckage. We get a zoom in on it, and it looks like nothing to me. If we've seen something like this before, I don't remember it. Could be an escape pod. It could be Sputnik for all I know. The Estrella grabs the object, and Hanyo lets us know that it is a GN drive, though not if it's one of the UN ones or what have you. I mean, I'd imagine. Well, I guess everyone was kind of taken out at the end of season one. It's something we've gone on about, oddly, that I don't remember. So I guess nobody came out to find the GN drives. That is interesting. She also mentions that there is a UN ship in the direction the drives came from, that the Meisters could have been captured, and asking if Fawn will rescue them. I have to wonder how many times we're going to go through this whole Q&A with Fawn, where it is very clearly stated a number of times already what Fawn thinks of the main team and when they fail. He responds with a laugh that if they can't clean up their own messes, then they're not Meisters, before flying away from the scene. Flying through even more debris, Hanyo indicates that there are life signs in the UN mobile suit wreckage ahead of them, and that if its current course is maintained, it will float into outer space. Fawn seemingly disregards the majority of that, only caring that there is a suit in his path as he kicks it out of the way. The pilot screams out, "Why?" as their wrecked suit starts falling back towards the Earth. The image of the pilot is barely recognizable to me, but the fact that they shout "Colonel" as they fall towards Earth makes me think that this might be that guy that they nicknamed Immortal, that survives every conflict and has a relationship with Colonel Mannequin. I mean, it would go a ways to explaining how he survived the fight. I think we also see him blow up, and yet here we are watching season 2 and he's still around. Immortal. Plot armor. Flying on towards their next target, it turns out to be the destroyed remains of one of the Gundams. Hanyo instantly thinks to themselves with a shocked face that of the name Tiara. I guess the wisps of stuff coming off the back of the suit would hint to which one it was. I'm already bad at knowing them on sight when they're fully there. This is just a crapshoot for me now. Bond points out that the GN drive's not here, and that Tiara must have ejected it. My first thought being, isn't that the drive you already collected? But I guess they did fly a good distance to get here, so that was probably a different drive. Since there is no drive here to collect, Fawn indicates that there's nothing for them to do here. Hanyo tells Fawn to wait, but then Fawn gives her a questioning look and she demurs. When we then shift to a zoom in on Tiara as Hanyo pictures them, saying to herself they've also lost Veda and they want to help him. Give him a hand. This really feels like a falling in love scene, the way Hanyo's eyes are depicted here versus when she's called out from the daydream that she's having. I don't particularly get it, beyond the fact that Tiara seemed to have the most connection to Veda from the main cast. But Hanyo is a terminal of Veda and not Veda itself. Whatever. I barely understand human emotion, let alone artificial intelligence's emotion. Fawn brings back Hanyo by saying their name. Somewhat looking down, Fawn says that they are leaving, and without any fight back, Hanyo accepts this as we see the Estrella flying away from the wrecked Gundam, GN drive in hand. We then see Tiara appears to still be conscious in their suit as they look into space and notice the trail of GN particles that the Estrella is leaving behind as it flies away. I guess this is creating some hint that Tiara has some inkling of knowledge of its existence. That or they've been going through the last 15 episodes of Season 2 thinking one of their companions has abandoned them here, or that a UN pilot decided to let them live. There's a lot of shit that you could put in Tiara's head right now of what they think that they're seeing, and has been unsaid through the Season 2 as far as we've seen. I just thought it was an interesting point. Alright, 2308 AD. Celestial being is destroyed by the United Nations and the world is united. Normally, this would be the hero's win ending text. Despite this, we see that the earth is cast in darkness on the page. Additionally, as show watchers, we also know that Ribbons is going to go on to set up a government that really isn't that great, and that I'll have lots of arguments for if you just go back and watch the first few episodes of Season 2. In fact, jumping right into my thoughts here, I've spoken my piece on what I think about the sudden shift of the common point of view from Season 1 to Season 2 in the show reactions. So I'll just say to check those out if you want to hear that. I guess I can hope that the next few chapters will take place in the time between Season 1 and Season 2, so that we can get some of that stuff that got skipped over, or I feel like got skipped over. It would go a long way to easing some of my complaints there. Any of you that have ever watched our Symphogear reactions will know that there was something that happened that I was really harping about for that happens at the end of season 1 of Symphogear and then just goes unaddressed the entirety of Symphogear G. And then at the very end of Symphogear G, we watch the bonus episodes, uh, and some of them take place between Symphogear and Symphogear G. And I was so happy that they addressed all the shit that I was pissed off about, or not pissed off, but just like energetic about the entirety of Symphogear G. And they addressed it, and it was like, oh, this is great. They finally spoke into my problems. That's what I want here. I want 00F in the next chapters to address my concerns with what I feel was missing between season 1 and season 2. Overall, this was a fairly good chapter. Fairly good, as in it wasn't as good as the chapter before it, but still better than the early chapters of Volume 1. I feel like this should have been broken up into two different chapters. One to deal with what Farashed is doing when the UN launches its strike on Celestial Being. Really a good chance to get into the fights, observations, and their mad dash to save supplies. And then a second chapter for Hanyo's observations, interactions, maybe even some computer-based interventions. The entirety of the battles being relegated to single shots on screens. Hanyo passes by, felt cool in the moment, but like a lost opportunity in reflection. Score-wise, I'll give this chapter a 6 out of 10. Better drawn than the early stuff. The narrative is more on point than the early stuff, but the lost opportunities drag this one down for me. So yeah, that has been Chapter 7 of 00F. I thank you all for sticking this out with me so far. Let me know if you have any thoughts, anything I can do to change this up to make it better. Otherwise, I'll catch y'all next time. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another Stone-Faced Reactions. If you have an idea of another video we could go ahead and watch, go ahead and put it in the comments down below and we'll add it to the wheel. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know what you thought about this video, what parts you liked. And until then, we'll see you next time. Is this too goofy?